Today we're going to do a little bit of pointillism practice and really learn how to make the dots correctly. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is spacing the dots correctly. So there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. What we're not doing is we're not just quickly making random dots, not thinking about where we're putting them, overlapping some, maybe some of them are dashes. This is not pointillism, okay? Pointillism is when you take your time and you make dots, not dashes, that are evenly spaced apart. They have purpose to them and you put thought into it. Also, I am not pressing very hard down on my micron pen here because I don't need to. But also, if I was to, I would get darker dots that would stand out from the rest. And I don't want to do that. I want to keep everything uniform and consistent. Now, there are going to be times where I need my dots to be closer together. So in those instances, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in and I'm going to add more dots in the in-between spaces. So in between the dots I've already created, I'm now going in and creating more dots. And if I want it even darker, I can go in and keep adding dots in those spaces. Sometimes there's going to be a little bit of overlap with your dots, especially if you want a very dark value, but most of the time it should look like this and it should not look like this. Okay, so there is a right technique and a wrong technique. So what I'm going to ask you guys to practice right now in your sketchbook is I'm going to ask you to create a value scale of pointillism. So you're going to make one rectangle box, and you can start doing this now. Let's say it's about 2 inches long, maybe 2.5, and let's do a line down the middle, and let's split up both sides evenly, so now we have 4 boxes. So we're going to go from light to dark, and we've practiced this before, this value scale, but with shading. This time it's pointillism. So to create a very light value, you're going to do your dots very spaced out. Okay? So we're still doing pointillism, and we're still technically shading in this space, but it's just creating a very light value. The next is we're going to start off with the same spaced out dots like this, but we're going to start to add in more dots to create a darker value like I was doing down here in this corner. So now let's start to add in more dots. Okay, our next value is going to be a step up from this one. So when you're doing pointillism, you really need to start to have a lot of patience with yourself. This art practice really challenges your patience, but once you get into that zone and you get used to this technique, it can start to be really meditative and relaxing in a way. Sometimes you're going to need to give your hand a break because it gets tiring doing this repetitive motion. Make sure you're not squeezing your drawing utensil too hard, and definitely not pressing down. I'm just kissing the paper with the tip of my marker. If your hand is getting tired, you might be pressing too hard. Okay, so now I'm still going in and adding more dots because I'm trying to continuously make it darker than this previous value. So it should be one step up every time. I might be close to being done. And make sure you keep it uniform. So don't have like one half of this box be way darker than the other half. I'm continuously moving my pen around and not just focusing on one section. I want to give love to all the different sections here. Alright, and now this one might take a little longer. And so I'm going to try to go a little faster. The video is already at 5 minutes, so I'm going to pause the video and finish this up and then rejoin you. Feel free to pause the video yourself as well. Okay, so I just finished up. I could even probably add a few more dots, but I'm going to call it there. So yours should look something like this. You can even number them, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you just created a value scale using pointillism. Great job. The last thing we're going to do is I want to show you that you can create patterns using pointillism. So it's not just about filling in spaces. You could also create patterns. Now this is something that you might want to plan out in pencil first because it is a little hard to just freehand it. But you can try doing different things. So if I want to take a pencil, I could draw a little square here and do maybe dots. So I'm going to keep it light, and then I can go in and fill in those dots. I don't need to draw a line around each dot and then fill it in. All I'm doing is filling it in, and I'm going to create some lines around the edge of it, not some lines, some dots to create lines around the edge of it so that it looks like it has a shape to it. So I want you to practice making some patterns on your own. They can be the ones I made, or they can be ones that you make up on your own. It doesn't matter how close together your dots are. Another thing that I wanted to teach you is when you are shading something in during this project, you're not going to be drawing lines and then shading it in, okay? You're going to be creating dots on the lines. So a line is going to be comprised of a neat line of dots. I'm not holding down my marker and dragging it to create a line like we normally do. I'm doing it with dots. So this is something you have to be really neat with and go slow with. And now I can fill it in and be a little more random with it. So practice doing that as well. Next time we do some practice, we're going to work on creating a sphere using this technique. But right now I just wanted you to practice making some patterns, practice your value scale, kind of starting with the basics. Another thing I forgot to mention was when you do something like this and you create your dashes and you're being quick and random, you're going to create, you're going to suggest unintended details or designs, okay? So there's certain groupings in here that I didn't mean to do, but it just kind of happened because I was being random, okay? There's like a line up here. There's groupings all over here. So we don't want to do that because that isn't what I was trying to do, okay? We want to be thoughtful and consistent with our dots. So right now I want you can pause the video if you need to or go back and play parts, but I want you to finish doing this section and submit it. So again, you don't have your lower half of designs doesn't have to look exactly like mine. I just want to see that you tried out different things. So don't just do one thing. Try out a few different things here. It's okay if you also did this. That's also good to have, but you don't have to. When you're finished with this, please submit it to Padlet for a grade.